Hey guys, and welcome back to the Hobby Dude 007 channel and the Model Car Cup series. The question was once posed, when was the first auto race? And the answer given was, shortly after the second car was built. Now I don't know how true that is, but it certainly speaks to man's desire for both speed and competition. And we as model car builders often replicate these speedsters in the form of drag cars. Recently, I've come into possession of a book just a few months ago, and I've read this through 4 times. It has already been a huge help to me, and I want to do a book review on this great book today. I will go as far as to say, in my humble opinion, in my library of books on model cars, this is the most exhaustively researched and well put together books I have. So let's review it. Bring your model to life with MCV products. Visit them on the World Wide Web at mcvproducts.net. Guys, today I want to share with you Collecting Drag Racing Model Kits, a showcase of America's most popular model kits by Tim Boyd. Now, most of you will know the name Tim Boyd if you've been around the hobby any length of time, read Scale Auto magazine, or other publications and forums. You know Tim's name. For those of you who are new to the hobby or just into the community or coming back that may not recognize the name, let me tell you a little about the author here. Tim is one of the leading authorities on model kits and model cars in general. He is also an absolutely outstanding and prolific model builder, and he has a number of awards from both regional and national contests under his belt that speak to that. He's also a highly respected model car journalist with over 500 model car published works to his credit. These come in the form of Scale Auto magazine and, as I said, forums. In fact, for Scale Auto, for over 40 years he was a contributor. He also had a long-running article called Modeler's Corner in Street Rodder magazine. Some really good stuff there. He has several other books to his credit. One I have in my library. Hadn't had it too long yet, but it's a great one too. It's called Collecting Muscle Car Kits, as you see here. And I've just ordered on eBay one that I did not have, and that is Collecting Model Car and Truck Kits. Tim is also, back in 2001, was elected to the International Model Car Builders Museum Hall of Fame. He is frequently consulted, as I understand, by several of the U.S. model manufacturing companies for advice and ideas. Professionally, Tim's got an automotive background too. He is retired from the Ford Motor Company after 35 years, and he worked for Ford's special vehicle team and was the director of the Design Strategic Concepts Group. So Tim has a big background in the auto industry and as a modeler. So I think he's quite the authority, and when you get into the book, we're going to see just how detailed that is. So let's get over to it. Okay guys, up front I want to tell you this is not going to be a page-by-page review because it's 176 pages and the video would be entirely too long, but rather it's going to be chapter by chapter. And this is, as I said, one of the most well-researched books that I think I have in all of my library. Taking a look at the table of contents, we have a dedication, acknowledgments, and the resources for the book. And just a quick review of the chapters. You have Introduction to Drag Racing Model Kits. Chapter 2, In the Beginning, the first drag racing model kits. Chapter 3, Stocks and Super Stocks, Racing the Family Sedan. That's where my family started anyway. Chapter 4, Gassers. 5, Front Engine Rail Dragsters. 6, Rear Engine Rail Dragsters. 7, Funny Cars Part 1, and 8, Funny Cars Part 2. And if you're wondering why those are different, funny cars were unique in the beginning. They were a little different than what we have come to know. Chapter 9, Pro Stocks, my all-time favorite division of NHRA and IHRA. Chapter 10, Altereds, Exhibition Racers, and all the rest. Chapter 11, fictitious flyers. And, you know, we have a lot of those in model cars where they're just, they're cool, but they're still drag racers that weren't really ever raced, but they're fun. Chapter 12, there's even more. We're going to look at some of the parts packs and some of the other things related to drag racing there too. And Chapter 13, Scale Drag Strip Gallery. Yes, Tim included some great models of some great builders around the country. So we'll be taking just a look at those. I am going to divide this into little segments here. But first up, the dedication page. I do want to acknowledge something here because these three guys, I know the names, and Tim took a moment to acknowledge them and the inspiration and love he has had for them. And first up is Don Emmons, then Jim Keeler, and Hank Borger. These three have not only been authorities in the model industry, but great journalists as well, and obviously inspired Tim as well. Acknowledgements, all of the people, whether model car historians, great builders, whatever it is, and there's many of these names that I know, some of which I am proud to say I am friends with. And also your resources, the sources used to put this book together, and there's some great information there too that you can utilize yourself. I could dwell on the resources just for a moment myself, but we're going to let you get your copy to find out. First up, Chapter 1, Introduction to Drag Racing Model Kits. Now, this chapter kind of gives an overview of kind of the whole book in a way, and I think it's really important. It was really well written and easy to understand, very comprehensive. In the 60-plus years of model drag racing, this allows you and I to be part of drag racing. Now, oftentimes we build models of things that we probably couldn't afford in real life, and in the same light, we could be part of NHRA drag racing or whatever class or division, however you want to put it, we can be a part of it through our modeling. Now, this book is not a source for, if you get this book thinking, okay, we'll know the NHRA rules for a particular class or division, or that's not what this is about. Keep in mind, it's the Introduction to Drag Racing Model Kits. There are plenty of other resources out there. You can pull up online NHRA rule books for specific years. I've done it. As well as you see here, some of the books that are out there available, and many of these, the Fastlane, Gasser Wars, Superstock, Pro Stock, I have a number of these books for research purposes. So there's plenty out there, not to mention what is online. But this chapter pretty much just gets into, again, the introduction of drag racing modeling kits. And so from there on, but let me tell you, it's fun nonetheless. There's different perspectives to look at from this thing, but Tim gives us a good overview of what's in here. And for example, each of the kits that we're going to see here, and honestly, of all of the kits in this entire book, I have not found but one that I did not know about and have not seen over the years. So this is a pretty complete book, at least to date anyway. It is. But you're going to have, for example, you're going to have the name of the company that produced it. Like you see here, the example, Revell Dick Landy 68 Dodge Charger, kit number. It was first introduced in 1999, the envy factor, and I'll explain that a little bit, which I think was an excellent idea. But you have, each of the kits are going to be by the manufacturer, the name of the driver or the car. Sometimes they just had, if it was a fictitious, or sometimes the name of the car was more famous than the driver. Instead of 1968, all of the abbreviations would be like just the two-digit 68. And then the manufacturer and body style. Then the, again, the manufacturer's kit number or the catalog number. The year it was introduced, and the envy factor, which you see the example here is 3 out of 5. 5 being the most, if I understand this correctly, and I've read it a number of times, as I said, the most accurate to the real car as well as the most desired of kits. So that helps out a lot too. And you also have the reissue history on many of them, the quality of the kit and accuracy, and of course that's part of that up to 1 to 5 rating. Does it replicate the real 1/1 car, as I said? And then the box art. And, you know, box art is very pleasing to the eye, too, oftentimes. I got to admit, I've bought cars based on the box art myself. The fan base for the real car or the real driver. For example, Don Garlitz, Don Perdome, John Force, Bob Glidden, some of those guys like that. Again, a lot of great resources, books, things like that. Also, some of the kit collector prices that are in there. Just some absolutely awesome stuff. Great information to have. In fact, the manufacturer kit number, since I've had this book, and I mentioned in the intro that it has been very helpful to me, having the original kit number helped me find 2 old kits that, and I've already purchased them. And I did, as I said, find 1 car in here that I did not realize was made. I don't know how it got by me, especially being a drag car, but it did. But I was able to find it in here. Again, Tim's book on collecting muscle cars, but here you've got other things here too. Model car kit, the business, the industry in general. What's your perspective on a specific area of interest? All of these things are a little bit different for some of us, but still great stuff. Chapter 2, in the beginning. Guys, I'm going to spend just a little extra time. I'm going to try to highlight these chapters, but I want to stick on this one for just an extra minute, because this is a special time for me in my life, because this is around the era that I started building models. 1963 was my first with my dad, if you recall. Well, drag racing models, 24th and 25th scale, the very first one started in the late 1950s up to 62 in that era. And this was a great time in the hobby too. The very first was monogram to replicate drag cars. And as you see here, the 32 Ford Deuce Roadster drag strip hot rod. This, I'll tell you what, I broke out a couple of these. And here we go. These were simplified kits compared to what we have today, but these are still absolutely a blast to build. And they're just good. I mean, look at that. Era correct 50s style hot rods. Great little drag cars there. And this, again, is the era. I remember building this one as a kid. I remember building so many of them. The first and fairly accurate of the I keep wanting to say Top Fuel, but the dragsters rail, if you will, was the Slingshot. And again, now, and also, guys, a lot of these did not come with chrome in them back then. In fact, as I recall, yeah, there was no chrome, and you had the 2-piece tires. No chrome in that one. And well, there's another one. I'll show you that one here in a minute too. Also, the cool thing about this era was many of the kits of that era were 2-in-1s and 3-in-1s, mostly 3-in-1s, because you could build it stock, custom, or, if you'll notice on the sides of the box, drag racers. So you had options that you could build. One of my favorites of all time was the 40 Ford. You could do a custom, you could do the drag, or you could do just a showroom stock, as you see here. Always loved this picture, and on the sedan, this picture on the box art. I always thought those were so cool. Why I never replicated either of those, I don't know, but I just thought they were really, really cool. But you had that option, and you had all those extra parts in there that you could do that stuff with. But just absolutely a blast. One of the other very first ones from 1960 was the Long John. And this is another one that was the streamlined dragster, as they called it. And as you see, you had parts molded in silver, not chrome, but you had the moon discs like you see on the box art there. that crazy body. Isn't that cool, though? But a lot of these things, I tell you, I've learned about stuff on this kit that I did not know that Tim had researched in here, too. And this one, the Green Hornet, if you recall, that's the very first car I built in 1963 with my dad. And let me tell you, I've probably got 5, 6 of those in my collection, because when I find a good deal on them, I just buy them anyway. But how cool is that? And when it comes to research, we talked about the books and magazines and things available. I have this from Hot Rod Magazine, and this is the October 1959 issue, and Tim covers that in his article, that this car, the Green Hornet, is actually the Grasshopper. And you notice the, well, let me get my kit, one of my kits over here. You see the box art, the guy's holding the body, and there you go. Both in red shirt. I mean, it's right on in line. But this has all of the information about, for research purposes, for the real car. How about that? But these things, and this was a drag racer, and what a great kit. What a great kit. There's so many more. I've got a few of these in my collection too. This Sizzler customizing dragster. You can build one of 6 different dragsters, drag cars out of that. And you have the Sizzler over here. You've got so many great, great things. And again, you have the information on each kit. Let's go back to the Green Hornet for a minute. You've got Monogram, who, by the way, those very first drag kits that were built were all Monogram. You've got your kit number, 1960 introduced, and it's 2 out of 5 on the Envy Factor. And of course, this has been reissued a few times too. And just some absolutely great, great stuff. So many of these early cars, the double dragster sets, those were great. I remember having a few of those. And again, that Sizzler and the options you had with it. And of course, that old Fiat double dragster kit, that one was always a popular one too. And fondly remember these. I built tons of these as a kid. The one thing I didn't build was the Challenger 1. Don't know why. I always thought it was cool, just never had built one of those. I think I've got one in the stash somewhere though. Then you get into the AMT, Johan, and MPC kits that were stock and drag, and just absolutely some awesome, awesome information. Historically on the kits, and I tell you, like I said, the kit numbers make it so much easier to find many of these things. Chapter 3, Stocks and Super Stocks, Racing the Family Sedan. As I mentioned when we were looking at the table of contents, this is where my family pretty much started off. I had an uncle that raced a pretty stock GTO that he had modified from '64, and it was a hot rod. And my other uncle ran super stock with a '69 and then '70 Firebird. You may recall me in the '72 Charger with the trophy. And this is where we started. My dad had a '39 Ford sedan, that two-door sedan that we drove around town, but he also would go to Greer Drag Strip. He would take the slicks out of the trunk and put them on there, unscrew the cutouts under the running boards, and go racing. So it was fun times. And again, that's where we started. And then later my uncle, well, we'll talk about gassers when we get to gassers. But an awesome place to stop. If you go to any of the drag strips around here, Ware Shoals, Greer, you're going to see the guys doing match racing and time racing there all the time too. Both of those are 1/8 miles, and just tons and tons of fun. A lot of great racing goes on there with a lot of guys that drive what they run on the street, what they drive on the streets, what they bring to the track, and that's a lot of fun. Done that myself. As we get into some of these older kits, though, we're going to see this word, this little thing right here, this banner. Every now and then you'll see this little oval that says derivative kit. Now, when you see that, what it is, of course, a derivative is from another source. So sometimes it could be something as simple as like this Ram Chargers super stock or funny car, and then this Dodge here, it could be the exact same kit with the exception of decals being the difference. Oftentimes that could be a derivative. It could be other little factors in there as simple as a different set of tires, other things, but mostly based off of another source. And we're going to see a lot of those old drag cars in here too that are like that. These, of course, being derivatives, the 62 Bel Airs. A lot of great stuff here, guys. Like I said, I'm not going to stick on a lot of this, just an overview. But as you see, all of these kits, by description, manufacturer, kit numbers, everything, this is just an absolutely awesome resource. Chapter 4, Gassers. And as Tim puts it, any fan of drag racing would have to acknowledge the influence of gassers on the sport of drag racing. I absolutely agree. My uncle had a 65 GTO that was a C-gas, as I'd mentioned, and I remember that fuel-injected engine being moved back right to where it almost touched the cowl and those stacks sticking up out of there. But if it was a gasser, you had a blower, you had a scoop, you had stacks, you had something sticking out of that hood, and they were cool. But another thing is the Willis. The Willis had, in any of the coupes really, were big in drag racing when it came to the gassers. And this is one of those chapters I'm excited about because I love gassers. If you recall my 39 sedan, two-door sedan, I did kind of in honor of my father. And just what a great bunch of cars. And as I said, there's still exhibition of gasser wars going on around the country too. But you'll see a lot of derivative kits here, but still, gassers were a big influence on the sport. And I remember building many of these. This stove bolt, the old Chevrolet Coupe, 37 Coupe, remember that? I remember doing the convertible because I thought it was so unique. And again, the Austins, the Tims, like I had just shared in a previous video there. But these Willises, all these coupes, things like this were just absolutely awesome. And they were really big in the day, especially in their heyday of the 60s. But of course, they were still running in the early 70s as well. This Henry J. I'd mentioned in a previous video, the Henry J was just I was never a fan, but I have seen more and more that's making me change my mind on that. There's a 50 Austin drag sedan, just absolutely cool. The Anglia, boy, I built enough of those things. But just absolutely cool cars. But gassers, again, big influence, and from my last video. And I'm curious what the envy factor on that one is. Let's go back here a minute. A 3 out of 5. The Simple Simon Pie Wagon. Absolutely awesome one. Now, here's one I haven't seen in a long time either. But these old gassers with that raised front end, just really cool. I remember building several of these over the years. Absolutely great stuff. And the Badman, 396. Of course, that was a Tom Daniels design. And just awesome stuff up to the 57. I picked up one of those not long ago, the 57 Ford Gasser wagon. These gassers, you could make about anything into a gasser. And like I said, guys, there's not, I don't know of any kit that was ever produced that Tim has not got a record of in the book here. Because I don't recall any, let's put it that way. All right, gassers, gotta love them. Chapter 5, Front Engine Rail Dragsters. And you know, to start this chapter off, I'm going to read the first paragraph that Tim has in here because I couldn't put it any better, and it is absolutely true, too. Back in the day, the top of the drag racing food chain was the front engine rail dragster. Nothing could match the sound, sight, and smell resulting from two of those barely controlled wild contraptions flying side by side down the local drag strip. Absolutely the truth. And I was blessed enough to grow up in that era of the front engine dragster too. Some awesome kits out there as well. And one of my favorite is the first one that Tim has listed here, and that is the Revell 22 Junior Dragster and Roadster. This is a set that I built as a kid. I also built one here recently, if you remember this one. And I still have the Plymouth Dragster down here that I want to go ahead and get that one done up too. But what an awesome and fun kit. I have the Hot Rod magazine that has Tony Nancy's 22 Junior in it that has the Buick nail head. That was a record-setting car, and I think it was 62, might have been 63, early 60s anyway, but it set a record. But what an awesome car. Great kits. Here's Tommy Ivo's Showboat. TV Tommy Ivo, this 4-engine job, I don't think I ever had it. I know I'd never built it, but I gotta admit, it's really cool. Mickey Thompson's Attempt 1 with drag chute and trailer. What an awesome kit. These front engine rails were something, and as Tim said there's nothing like the sound, the deafening sound from a Top Fuel, the smells, and if it's at night, man, when you see what's coming out of those pipes, it is impressive. But a lot of great dragsters have been built over the years. The first 200-mile-an-hour dragster, Don Garlett's Winds Jammer. So I've got some historical kits here as well. I remember building several of the Ram Chargers cars, including, I think, a couple of these Top Fuel dragsters. I think I've got 2 of those in my stash now. And, of course, more American Graffiti dragster. If you remember the movie American Graffiti, if you don't, you've missed out. Go back and watch it. Great dragster from the movie. A couple other Don Garletts. I have a couple of the Young Americans. This was probably my favorite of the front engine rail kits. I think I've got 2 of those in my stash now, and I've got some decals from Slicks for a specific project in mind, along with a couple of resin parts. Great stuff. These twin engine rails from back in the day, you would think a couple of Hemis would double the power, double the speed. Didn't quite work out that way, but for exhibition cars, they were pretty cool too. In fact, down at Commerce, Georgia, I remember seeing a really long rail that had 3 engines on it. But absolutely awesome stuff. Now, getting into chapter number 6, rear engine rails. Now, in 1971, Don Garlett's he debuted the first rear engine rail dragster. And the reason for that was he had lost, the season previous, he had lost part of his right foot when the transmission in the front engine rail exploded and took part of his foot off. Well, when he came back, and I remember this kit because I think it had just hit the shelf that very day in the store that I used to get my models, and I believe that he had just put that on the shelf just before I got there. So I got one of the first ones from our local model shop, and how cool was that? But the Don Garlett's rear engine dragster, and I think I had one before anybody in my area anyway, but it was really cool. And of course, over the years, it has progressed as well, and we'll be taking a look at that as we go along too. Then you had the wedge type. You had so many others, and I remember doing the Tom McEwen, Don Prudhomme dragsters. I don't think they were the front engine as well. The Copperhead, I have 2 of those in my stash. I have something unique in mind for those. More of Tommy Ivo's. There were so many really cool kits of the dragsters. And there was, you know, I mentioned to you in first that there was one in this book that I'd never recalled seeing. Well, this is the one, and it was released in 2014 apparently. Somehow I missed it. And that is the Revell's Jungle Gym Rail Dragster. I don't remember that, and I'm ashamed to admit that because I usually try to keep up to date on anything that's new. I just don't remember it. But that's going to be one I'm going to have because I love Jungle Gym. I've got a number of the funny cars, but that one I do not have. So many really great kits. Chapter 7, Funny Cars, Part 1. In the early to mid-1960s, there were a lot of changes going on in a lot of the divisions, Superstock predominantly, but you had a lot of factory involvement, and there were a lot of changes coming up. You had the big blocks, the Hemis, the A990s, the Fairlanes, Thunderbolts, all of those, and you had things starting to change. You had altered wheelbases. You had where the wheelbases were moved forward. You also had partial to entire bodies that were being made of fiberglass to cut down on weight, thus more speed. Among a lot of changes I'm not even going to get into, of course, we can get into the carburation was changed to mechanical fuel injection. There was just so many things that is so well covered here. Tim did a great job there. But the early funny cars aren't what we see today, so thus Part 1. But they are replicated by a lot of manufacturers. Mobius, Model King, just a lot of great stuff out there too, guys. These were considered funny cars. And you see a lot of them are derivative kits, but that Golden Commandos kit is an awesome kit too. There are a lot of really cool kits in here. And you've got a lot of the big names that were the drivers of these things. Don Nicholson, Arnie Beswick, big names in their day were kings of the drag strip in these things, and they were known for their funny cars. And like I said, when you look at these pictures on the box art, you typically look at that and go, well, that's not a funny car. But actually, they are. They were considered funny cars. And there were some unique ones, too. One of them I never saw at the drag strip. Well, I saw a lot of body styles. I never saw the 67 Charger, the Color Me Gone one. Well, I didn't see it in real life. One of the first, there are 2 funny cars that I always remember fondly because I built a couple of them each. The Dino Don Nicholson Eliminator 1. I remember that one very distinctly. And another one was not a real one, but we'll get to it later in the book because it is in here too. But it's really cool. But I remember building, I think, 2 of these. And that's been reissued in a couple of forms. But just great memories here too, guys. Great memories. Lots of awesome funny cars. Remember the Mr. Norm Charger? I remember building that. And I'll be sharing in a Model Cars and Coffee, the Super Judge. That's another Arnie Beswick. And just some of these cool ones between the Challengers. I remember building these in the MPC series of funny cars, the Color Me Gone, all kinds of stuff like that were just really cool. And somewhere in my stash, I actually have a Javelin funny car. I just got to figure out where it is. I was looking for that when I did my April Fool's thing. Another AMC or AMX. Some just absolutely cool. I remember that one. I want to say I had that one at one time, but I'm not quite sure. But just some absolutely awesome stuff. And as we get into the stretch bodies and some of the other stuff, we start getting into a little bit more modern stuff as we get up toward the end of the 60s. But again, guys, every piece of information, as you see, this is a lot of information on kits, and it is good stuff. And if you want to know how accurate something is, there you go. I remember building, I think it was the 71 or 72 Hawaiian, which I think was an MPC. But a lot of these are really good. Another one that I didn't recall, and then I got looking, and I'm like, yeah, I did, was the Tom McEwen 69 Cuda. At first I saw that, and I thought, well, wow, I remember that. And then I got looking through the stash, and I'm like, okay, never mind. These Mustangs from Polar Lights were really good, too. But funny cars, awesome. Flying Dutchman. A lot of great stuff here, guys. All right, Funny Cars Part 2, Chapter 8. Now this gets more into the modern stuff where we have the tube chassis, the narrower tube chassis, the full fiberglass bodies. Everything is nitromethane, so you're running on blowers. These things are absolutely kind of up to what we run today. And with the modern technology, just some really great stuff. And these are top fuel funny cars. And there are some beauties over the years. A lot of awesome kits. This particular kit, this Blue Max or the Bounty Hunter, these are pretty much the same kit all the way through. But no matter what you put on these 71 Mustangs, they are just bad. And then you have a lot of the stuff, the Soapy Sales funny car. I remember building that one. The Muldowney car, the Cha-Cha. A lot of historic kits in here too. Gene Snow's cars. And a lot of these were available in 16th scale as well, and we'll touch on that here in a little bit. And of course, my man, Jim Lieberman, Jungle Jim. But a lot of great stuff here. And one of the more recent reissues, the Mopower Plymouth Funny Car. But some great stuff. Peanut One. And when we get into some of these, I just love the way the front ends and the front tire wells, the way they're set up, especially this Firebird. And this Corvette is pretty tough too. But some awesome funny cars. One of my favorite series of funny cars that came out were the Monogram series of funny cars when those came out in about 1985. But these were really popular too at the time, along with the Pro Stock counterparts. But some awesome stuff. And these you could get, again, we'll touch on it, in other scales as well, large and small. Chapter 9, Pro Stocks. As I said early on, this is my favorite division of NHRA, and I just love Pro Stockers. And this class was debuted in 1970 by the NHRA, and that was thanks to the efforts of many of the big names in racing at the time. Dick Landy, Dino Don Nicholson, Ronnie Socks, just a lot of the top guys that were in NHRA at that time. And they had started a drag racing team in '69 that was match racing, and it was some good stuff. The specs for these cars had to be, in 1970, it had to be from 1968 or later or newer, and the engine specs had to be from 65 or newer. They could not be, had to be carbureted. They couldn't be blown or fuel injected, anything like that. Just two carburetors, which is what we still see today. early on, Johan, MPC, and Monogram took the lead in this. And like I said, guys, all of this information here is top drawer. But they took the lead in these builds. Early on, I remember building, for example, the Johan Sox and Martin Cuda. I remember that one early on. I think I did 2 of those, and I think I've got 1 or 2 in my stash now. Now, since then, Revell has released their, I think that's 72, but great stuff. But going back to this Sox and Martin Cuda, this was, for its time, the most accurate, because a lot of these kits, they would have a stock everything, stock body, stock everything, that you just did your race car stuff over to, like the 2-in-1, 3-in-1 kits. You had a basic body. This, on the other hand, was very accurate for what it was at the time. The chassis, the interior, the engine, everything. I was always impressed with the engine, with the dual plugs and distributors. Dead on. But some absolutely great stuff. A lot of the Pro Stocks that I built did start out as the Johans. That's where I started with them anyway, 'cause I love those things. The Maverick and the Comet, and they were really big into AMC. So you see the Javelin and AMX. A lot of great stuff there. And again, guys, I'm not dwelling on some of this stuff, but the information in here is absolutely awesome. This kit right here, this Nova's been re-released many times, and while it's just a generic body, this builds into a pretty respectable looking Pro Stock with a tunnel ram, the 2.4s. It actually does build into a pretty decent one, but one that I really, this is one of my grail kits that I would love to get my hands on, is this Ventura. This is, I built one of these early on. I remember painting it red, and I'd love to get one again, but I've got a stock car in mind instead of a drag car, but I wouldn't mind if I get my hands on 2, I might do the drag car too. But I just thought that was so cool, and I encountered a few people that said they'd never seen that Ventura. But cool, huh? And keep in mind that Nova and this shared pretty much the same body. The front fenders, the grill area, and the hood were separate pieces. So you had an entirely different front clip there. A lot of these are listed, but the pictures are in groups. Now, these Dusters were a hallmark in the 70s for the Pro Stockers. And these are very difficult to find, if you can find them. But the 73, 74 Dusters, I have a couple of resin bodies, one of each, 73 and 74, from Competition Resins. I got from Slicks for the purpose of building this. This is a Petty Enterprise Roy Hill Duster. Cool, huh? Anyway, so many great Pro Stockers out there. You had Bill Grumpy Jickens cars, the USA 1 there. Some of these have been recently reissued. The Dick Landy Challenger. And gotta love the stock looking Pintos and Vegas. They were just cool. They were cool. But Pro Stocks, love these things. The Firefighter, which not been that many years back that came back out. And again, with Slicks decals, you can find a lot of decals to make a variety of cars off of those too. Great stuff. And then getting into the 80s, you had the Pro Stock Camaros in the mid 80s that came out, and then a little bit later the Firebirds, and also in the, I think it said, yeah, 86, you had the Thunderbirds that came out. But these Pro Stockers, I love to watch these things run. They're fast. They're not top fuelers, but let me tell you, for what they are, they will scoot down the strip really quick. But some absolutely awesome stuff. Chapter 10, Altereds, Exhibition Racers, and all the rest. Now, Altereds were just that. They were, a lot of them would be Fiats, or they'd take a T-bucket and modify the daylight side of it, or alter it, as the class is called. But Altereds, you can see how these things were set up, far from the standard wheelbase. Some of the body mods that were made, big wings were added to some of them. Exhibition racers, of course, these are just cars that went to the strip just to, kind of like a show car, but to rip down the strip. And we'll look at a few of those as we come along too. Going back to that Sizzler again, a lot of the modified bodies where you just took and opened up a whole side of the body where the door would normally be, but they were heavily altered. And when you think about it, this Tony Nancy car that we talked about earlier, that is in many ways an alter. You got a 23T with a whole side of the car cut out for the tires to tuck into, and then the extended front end. So it was an altered. And when we get over here to the Orange Crate, that's another one that was heavily modified, but it was just cool, very cool. And then, of course, you had the parts packs that had the T-body in it, so you could do your altered out of that. And then, as I was saying, the old T-style bodies with the wing and all that stuff, just a cool altered. And there were a number of those, the Bantam Blast being one of those too. But a lot of the cars, in addition to being altered, you also had those that were, let's see if I can find it. Again, show cars. Of course, in the 60s, wheelies were a big thing. So you had the Hemi Underglass. You had the LA Dart. Of course, these were rear engine cars. And of course, you had the Piranha. And one of them that I have built a couple of is the Little Red Wagon. When I was younger, built that when it first came out. And the Hearst Harry Olds, the twin engine Oldsmobile. Really cool. And of course, the Dragula was a show car and exhibition car, as were a number of them. Tony's LAPD Camaro, this thing, they'd turn the blue lights on, or the lights on, and then rip down the strip. And I mean, this thing, wow. Kind of cool, though. What about today's drag racing machinery? And I'm not going to get into this. You really need to read this, though, guys, because this is some great information as far as the model standpoint of it comes, too. Fictitious Flyers, Chapter 11. This was one of those things that, of course, is just, they weren't real cars, but they are cool. This Plum Crazy 57 funny car. The Boss Nova. You had just a lot of really cool cars. Haven't seen this one in a long time, the El Camino. I've got another edition of that, or another, well, yeah, an edition of that. But some cool stuff. The Holland Hearse. And I mentioned earlier the two funny cars that I had done, the Eliminator 1, the Dino Don Nicholson car, and this was the other one that I always remembered being so cool, was the Allison Thunderland Big Al, because this old Thunderbird is powered by an Allison aircraft engine. And the thing I remember so distinctly about this is the pipes came out the side windows. But it's a funny car, and it is just so cool. But a good exhibition car. But an Allison aircraft engine, I would have never thought of putting in a car like that. But it's just a big old V12 engine. And my brother Scott and I both built, I believe it was the school bus. But just some great looking exhibition show car type things here. The Tarantula. Remember building that. Great memories in this book too, guys. Just some absolutely awesome stuff here. And there's even more, chapter 12. And guys, here we're going to take a look at the stuff that is not in kit form per se. You had Ravel's All-Star Race Team, and you had the magazines, Hot Rod, different magazines that had these ads in them for models. And when we look at these, we're thinking of not only 1/24th, 1/25th, but we're looking at 1/16th scale and even down to the 32nd scale. Some absolutely awesome stuff. And let me tell you, in 1/16th scale, there are some absolutely awesome cars. These, for the most part, had close to the same chassis, if not the same with a number of them, but the bodies were all uniquely different in 16th scale, and they were just cool. Awesome stuff. Parts packs. You've seen me use tires and wheels. Let me get over here to that one. Like these a number of times in here, and you've also seen me use some of these parts packs to just build little chassis and stuff like that. This is one of the last ones I did. Take that body off, and this was just part of a kit, and it was in one of these parts packs. In fact, it's probably, well, it's not pictured that I see, but it is one of those parts packs from AMT, and it had the little body, and you see I've got some of that done. But cool, huh? You also have today the 3D printed and the resin cast stuff, and both of which the quality has really stepped up. And by the way, we also have the monogram series of 1/32nd scale funny cars that are snap togethers. And you know, I did that Lumina in the Dale Earnhardt Lumina in 32nd scale, and really went back and had some 3D printed custom stuff done and custom made some stuff myself. And as you see, you can do a lot with a snap together. You can convert some things, and I think that's true with so many of these things. And a lot of the other big scale cars that were 2-in-1s and 3-in-1s that, and beyond 16th scale, you had 12th scale and 1/8th scale. But just some absolutely incredible stuff. So if you want a large scale, small scale, standard scale, tons of it. Again, when it came to the altered wheelbase cars for drag racing and all that stuff, there's a number of companies, including MCW Finishes, also does resin casting, and they do not just stock bodies, but they do altered bodies as well as altered wheelbase bodies. But there's a lot of stuff out there, and when it comes to specific parts, my man Norm over at Replicas and Miniatures Company of Maryland is one of the oldest and highest quality of specific parts. And competition resins, which you can get through Slicks Decals, is also a great source. But there's some great information in here on decals, parts, that again, Tim has done just such an outstanding job giving you an idea of what's out there. Hey, and in the world we live in now with computers, hey, just jump online. You'd be surprised what you can find. But absolutely some great stuff. And then we have a section, the very best drag racing kits of all time. This is broken down by different eras, by decades, 60s, 70s, 80s, all the way to 1990 to present. And guys, these things are just, it's great information. It's good stuff. Again, just chock full of information. And then chapter 13, the scale model drag, or scale drag strip gallery. And this is some of the biggest names in model building that we have today, and some of their builds. And I mean, they are some beautiful stuff. My friend Bill Coulter, a couple of his, Steve Perry. There's just some great stuff out there. And these are just some beautiful builds, guys. Absolutely awesome stuff. Love those funny cars. There's what we got on the cover there. And just a lot of awesome stuff. And to Tim, buddy, thank you very, very much. This is a great asset to any modeler's library. Guys, if you don't have this and you don't have collecting muscle cars model kits, these are must-haves because, as I said in the beginning, these are very exhaustively researched. They've been a big help to me already, as I said, in finding 2 kits and discovering one that I did not know that I missed. So, great walk down memory lane for me as well. But an absolutely outstanding book. I highly, highly recommend it, guys. If you don't have it, head over to Amazon. You can pick them up there, or you can go to cartechbooks.com. That's cartechbooks.com and order you one. You can also find them, as I said, the one on model cars and truck kits. I picked that one up on eBay. But Amazon, and as I understand it, and I'm rambling a second here, guys, but I want to say that Model Roundup carries it too. But no matter where you get it, you need to get it. Great, great book. Tim, thank you so much again. Appreciate all the effort and the work that you put into this. It is noticed and greatly appreciated. Guys, God bless. Hope y'all have a great week. We'll see you in the next video.